Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Konachai, Maiko Shashi ki Jai, Shri Tulsinath Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Giridhara ki Jai, Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki Jai, Rancharai Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Namo Vishwantata, Krishna Prasthana, Shiva, Vishwantata, Krishna Prasthana, Shri Bhakti, Swami. We're continuing our reading of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, chapter entitled India Unifying ISKCON. Harisori, a Grihastha, inquired whether artificially accepting the renounced order could actually be indulging in another form of sense gratification. As soon as we manufacture something, Prabhupada replied, that is sense gratification. When we think, I want to fulfill my desire, that's all. That is sense gratification. It may be that I sit down under a tree or I sit down in a palace. The basic principle is sense gratification. The other day I was talking about Hira Chora and Kira Chora. Hira means diamond and Kira means cucumber. One person is thinking, I shall steal one cucumber, and another thinks, if I steal, I shall steal a diamond. But the stealing propensity is there. One may think that I am only stealing a cucumber and it is not very dangerous. But in the eyes of the law, both of them are criminal. So if we manufacture a concoction, yes, I have got a stealing propensity, but I'll not steal a diamond. I'll steal Kira. That is only mental concoction. But he is a thief. Javat Swami. So is Grihastha life in Krishna consciousness allowing us to steal Kira? Prabhupada, yes, Kira Chora. The prostitute hunter is Hira Chora and the householder is Kira Chora. That's all. Again, Harishori inquired whether artificial renunciation was sense gratification. There were different views among the disciples, and they wanted Prabhupada to make it very clear so that one party could not take a quote from Prabhupada and claim it was universal. Renunciation is not artificial, said Prabhupada. It is a process. We have to give up this sense gratification, so go through a process to turn. Like sometimes in a health club, there is artificial swimming, is it not? Artificial swimming is not actual swimming, but it is to practice. Dayananda. But sometimes people who renounce, they become very proud. What is that? Prabhupada continued to reply that renunciation had to be actually practiced. Everyone must attend the Mangalati, he said. One must attend this, otherwise, no prasadam. If you are too sick, then also you should not eat. There should not be sleeping at the time of Mangalati because he says he's sick, then at the time of prasadam, voracious eating. If the devotees were looking for Prabhupada to make an absolute distinction between Grihastha and Sannyasi, it was not there. He emphasized rather the actual quality and the practice of the individual devotee. On another morning walk, Hridayananda Goswami told Prabhupada of the sannyasi's discussions. Hridayananda, we were thinking that it would be nice to have the city centres for the preachers, and for the women and children it's much easier to maintain them on farms. Then they can do a little work and produce their own food. Prabhupada, yes, in the farms they can live and do some handwork. Guru Kripa Swami. They won't do it though, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, then you don't allow. If they do not follow the rules and regulations, then what is the use? Another sannyasi said that when many householders came together in big communities, an atmosphere of laziness developed, whereas when lots of brahmacharis were preaching together, it was more enlivening. Prabhupada, anyway, everyone should be engaged, that's all. No idle life. Never encourage laziness. If we maintain some lazy men, then everything will be spoiled. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Verses that we have.
It's 19 and 20.
So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 9, the Supreme Character of Javat, text 19 and 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Should we go through this like a verse? Well, it's not this too. Okay, so I'll just read through the Sanskrits in prose. Evam eva kalu mahada vicharati krama katsne yagmane palati. Translation. When an envious person commits an offence before a great personality, he is always punished in the way mentioned above. Text 20. Nava etad Vishwantata mahadadbhutam yad asambrama swashiras chedana apatite pivimuktade dhyatma bhava sudrida hridaya grantinam sarvasattva surid atmanam nivairanam sakshad bhagavatani maisari Vayayudena pramatena taistai bhavai parivakshamananam tadpadamulam akutaschit vayam Upastanam Bhagavata Paramahamsanam. Please repeat. Na,
Na,
not,
not.
va,
Va,
or, etat,
etat,
this,
this.
Vishwantata,
Vishwantata,
O Maharaj Parikshit,
O Maharaj Parikshit,
who is protected by Lord Vishnu,
who is protected by Maharaj Vishnu.
Mahat,
Mahat,
a great, Adbhutam,
Adbhutam,
wonder,
wonder.
Yat,
Yet,
which,
which,
Asambrama,
Asambrama,
lack of perplexity,
lack of perplexity.
Swashira Chedane,
Svashira Chedane,
when the chopping off of the head,
when the chopping off of the head,
Apatite,
Apatite,
was about to happen,
was about to happen.
Api,
Happy,
even though
Vimukta,
Vimukta, completely liberated from
completely liberated from
Deha Adi Atma Bhava,
Deha Admi Atma Bhava,
the false bodily concept of life,
the false bodily concept of life.
Sudrida,
Sudrida,
very strong and tight,
very strong and tight.
Hridaya Grantinam,
Hridaya Grantinam,
of those whose knots within the heart,
those whose knots within the heart.
Sarva Sattva Sirit Atmanam,
Sarvasatva Suhrit Atmanam,
of persons who in their hearts
the person who is in their hearts.
always wish well to all living entities.
Always wish well to all living entities.
Naivairanam, who
Nirvairanam,
do not find anyone as their enemy.
who do not find anyone as their enemy.
Sakshat,
Sakshat,
directly. Bhagavata,
Bhagavata,
by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Animisha,
Animisha,
invincible time.
invincible time.
Arivara,
Arivara,
and the best of weapons,
and the best of weapons.
the Sudarshan Chakra.
The Sudarshan Chakra.
Ayudena,
Ayudena,
by him who possesses the weapons.
by him who possesses the weapons.
Apramatena,
Apramatena,
not agitated at any time.
not agitated at any time.
Tai Tai,
Tai,
by those respective.
by those respective.
Bhavai,
Bhavai,
moods of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
moods of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Parirakshamananam,
Parirakshamananam,
of persons who are protected.
the persons who are protected.
Tatpadamulam,
Tatpadakulam,
at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Akutaschit,
Akutaschit,
from nowhere.
from nowhere.
Bhayam,
Bhayam,
fear.
fear.
Upasritanam,
Upasritanam,
of those who have taken complete shelter.
those who have taken complete shelter.
Bhagavata,
Bhagavata,
of devotees of the Lord.
of devotees of the Lord.
Paramahamsanam,
Paramahamsanam,
of the most liberated persons. Translation. Shukadev then said to Maharaj Parikshit, O Vishnudata, those who already know that the soul is separate from the body, who are liberated from the invincible knot in the heart, who are always engaged in welfare activities for all living entities, and who never contemplate harming anyone, are always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who carries his disc, the Sudarshan Chakra, and acts as supreme time to kill the demons and protect his devotees. And the devotees always take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. Therefore, at all times, even if threatened by decapitation, they remain unagitated. For them, this is not at all wonderful. Please repeat. Shukadeva Goswami then said to Maharaj Parikshit,
Shukadeva Goswami then said to Maharaj Parikshit,
O Vishnudata,
O Vishnudata,
those who already know
those who already know
that the soul is separate from the body,
that the soul is separate from the body,
who are liberated from the invincible knot in the heart,
who are liberated from the invincible knot in the heart,
who are always engaged in welfare activities
who are always engaged in welfare activities
for all living entities,
for all living entities,
and who never contemplate harming anyone,
and who never contemplate harming anyone,
are always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
are always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
who carries his disc,
who carries his disc,
the Sudarshan Chakra, and acts as supreme time to kill the demons and protect his devotees. The devotees always take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. Therefore, at all times, even if threatened by decapitation, they remain unagitated. For them, this is not at all wonderful. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. These are some of the great qualities of a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. First, a devotee is firmly convinced of his spiritual identity. He never identifies with the body. He is firmly convinced that the spirit soul is different from the body. Consequently, he fears nothing. Even though his life may be threatened, he is not at all afraid. He does not even treat an enemy like an enemy. Such are the qualifications of devotees. Devotees are always fully dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Lord is always eager to give them all protection in all circumstances. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto and 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Supreme Character of Javat. Could you bring me the tissues, please, John? Om Agyanitimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmanitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Swapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupadhanayam Tadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvaitam Sabhadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakam Vitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Krivasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Read the translation again. Shukadeva Goswami then said to Maharaj Parikshit, O Vishwantata, those who already know that the soul is separate from the body, who are liberated from the invincible knot in the heart, who are always engaged in welfare activities for all living entities, who never contemplate harming anyone, are always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who carries his disc, the Sudarshan Chakra, and acts as supreme time to kill the demons and protect his devotees. The devotees always take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. Therefore, at all times, even if threatened by decapitation, they remain unagitated. For them, this is not at all wonderful. So, in a text 14, just a few days ago we read this verse, text 14. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, he quotes a song or a poem by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the father of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is the spiritual master of Srila is Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a great Vaishnavacharya, a wonderful poet. He wrote many poems in English, Sanskrit and Bengali. And he actually re-established the authenticity of the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition amongst the academics of the late 19th century, and also amongst the English academics also. So some of his songs he wrote for recitation amongst villagers, and some he wrote for very educated persons. He was an amazing teacher. So he sings here, Maravirakabi yoicha tohara nitya dasa pratitu yadikara. My Lord, I am now surrendered unto you. I am your eternal servant, and if you like, you can kill me, or if you like, you can protect me. In any case, I am fully surrendered unto you. So it's interesting in this verse, Srila Shukadeva Goswami refers to Maharaj Parikshit. He calls him Vishwantata, one who is protected by Krishna, by Lord Vishnu. Does anyone know why he's called Vishwantata? John, do you know why Maharaj Parikshit is called Vishwantata? You think of any way in which he was protected as a child?
Oh yeah, I think it was with the Ashvatama release, wasn't it?
And so where was he at that? Where was Maharaj Parikshit at that time when Lord Vishnu?
In the womb of his mother.
Yeah. So Maharaj Parikshit was in the womb of his mother Uttara when Ashvatama threw the weapon which was designed to kill Maharaj Parikshit in his mother's womb, because Ashvatama knew that Maharaj Parikshit was going to be the next emperor, and he felt that this would be like a great heroic act if he could somehow or other kill the next emperor. And Krishna appeared, or Krishna protected Maharaj Parikshit in his form as Paramatma within Maharaj Parikshit's heart. And Krishna manifested himself before Maharaj Parikshit in the heart. So while Maharaj Parikshit was in his mother's womb, he actually saw the beautiful form of Shirodakashai Vishnu. He saw the beautiful form of Krishna in the heart. And he remembered that form throughout his life. And he was always trying to find that person. He was always hankering after seeing that person again. So this is why he has the name Parikshit, because it means one who is always eager to see, one who is always looking everywhere, one who is always searching. Is the name Parikshit Maharaj. So Lord Vishnu, Krishna protected Maharaj Parikshit at that time, but actually at the time of Maharaj Parikshit's death, it might appear that Krishna didn't protect him. That actually Maharaj Parikshit was killed by Taksha, by a very powerful Naga, who came and killed Maharaj. Even though Maharaj Parikshit was a great saintly king, he wasn't just a powerful emperor, but he was an extremely elevated Paramahamsa king who had great affection for Krishna's devotees, and also at the start, really promoted Krishna Bhakti within his kingdom. So it may seem that Krishna didn't protect him at that time. And actually many of the persons who were present when Maharaj Parikshit was killed by Taksha, they were shocked even though Maharaj Parikshit was actually peaceful and he was completely absorbed, he was in bhava. He wasn't just like Chad Bharat here. He's not agitated, even though he was threatened by decapitation. So similarly, Maharaj Parikshit, he also was not agitated, even though he'd been warned that he was going to be killed in some way at a particular time. He was going to be assassinated. But he wasn't disturbed, but rather he thought this was actually Krishna's mercy to enable him to absorb himself in remembrance in the last days of his life. So, in the last line of this shloka we're reading today, so it's described that Krishna acts as supreme time to kill the demons and protect his devotees. The devotees always take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Therefore, at all times, even if threatened by decapitation, they remain unagitated. For them, this is not at all wonderful. So it might be easy to extract from this verse a kind of conception that Krishna, whenever we're in great danger, we don't need to worry. Krishna's got his Sudarshan chakra, and as long as we're engaged in devotional service, Krishna will make some amazing arrangement to protect us. But that's not the case. This material world is it's temporary and it's full of miseries. Tukalayam Shashvatam. It's designed. This world was designed with built-in obsolescence. And also our bodies, the material body is built in with built-in obsolescence. They're designed to come to an end, and this is because they're subject to the time factor, and that time factor is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. But Krishna can use the time factor to adjust the nature of the interactions between his devotees and the material energy. It's in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 5, verse 18. Navajuno jatu katanchana vrajen mukunda sevyanyavaranga sansritim smaran mukundang riyapaganam puna vihatanichena rasagahojana. My dear Vyasa, even though a devotee of Lord Krishna sometimes falls down somehow or other, he certainly does not undergo material existence like others, because a person who has once relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again. So, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, a karmi suffers the result of his own fruitive actions, whereas a devotee is reformed by chastisement directed by the Lord himself. The sufferings of an orphan and the sufferings of a beloved child of the king are not one and the same. An orphan is really poor because he has no one to take care of him, but a beloved son of a rich man, although he appears to be on the same level as the orphan, is always under the vigilance of his capable father. So, irrespective of how a devotee is superficially impacted by the material energy in terms of disease, violence from others, disturbance in business dealings, and ultimately death. That devotee has not been abandoned by Krishna, but rather Krishna is guiding the devotee to the platform of pure devotion. So we read about the pure devotees. For example, Prahlad Maharaj was Lord Chaitanya's favourite example of a pure devotee. And if we read it in the beginning of the pastime of Prahlad Maharaj, it just describes how he acted, that he wasn't, even when he was very young, before his father suspected that he was like a Vaishnava, when he was very young, he would just constantly be in ecstasy remembering Krishna. And he wouldn't be thinking about eating or sleeping. He would always be in an ecstatic trance constantly. And then we can see in his dealings with his father that he was, it's described here, those who know that the soul is separate from the body are always engaged in welfare activities for all living entities and never contemplate harming anyone. So Prahlad Maharaj never contemplated harming his father. He didn't want to offend his father. He had to speak the truth in front of his father because he was so spontaneously attracted to Krishna and Krishna's message that whenever he had the opportunity to speak about Krishna, he would do so. But it wasn't his intention to in any way hurt his father. And again, when after Lord Nrsimhadev killed Hiranyakashipu and asked Prahlad for a benediction, then the only benediction that Prahlad wanted was that his father would be, benefited in some way. But in that verse I've just read from the first canto, Srila Prabhupada is saying that even if we're not on the level of Prahlad, where we're constantly and spontaneously attracted to Krishna at all times, even if we're still subject to being influenced by our anarthas. So we're not liberated from the invincible knot in the heart. We're still, to some degree, entangled by some desires that remain in our heart. And so therefore with faith, we've adopted the process that we've received from Srila Prabhupada. Just as we were reading there in that pastime in Mayapur, when Hari Sori, Jayapataka Maharaj, Guru Kripa Swami, they were asking Srila Prabhupada, who should really be in charge, the Grihastas or the Sannyasis? Srila Prabhupada answered, everyone is going through a process of purification, and that purification will take some time, and you can't actually say that this person is better than that person, because everyone is actually being protected and guided by the Lord's vision and by the vision of the spiritual master. So we're not able to judge necessarily which platform another person is on. But it is correct for us to look at our own situation and how we're still entangled in the invincible knot of desires in the heart, although it's not actually invincible. There's a nice verse in the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, which describes how the knot in the heart can be pierced. Does anyone know that verse?
Srimad.
Yes, well that's right, that's the right answer. Srimvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Vidyantastra Yabhadrani Vidyanoti Savitsatam. This is Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 17. And there is Lord Sri Krishna, he's situated in everyone's heart as the Super Soul. And when he sees that someone is following the process, just like Srila Prabhupada described the process, attending Mangalarti, or at least having a program in your own homes in the morning, a structured program. Try to have the same program every day of reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, reading from the life of Srila Prabhupada and his interaction with his devotees in the Prabhupada Lilamrita, and chanting Hare Krishna both in the form of private meditation, japa, and also in the form of singing the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, singing the songs of Narottam Das Thakur, and singing the prayers, reciting the prayers of these great acharyas. So in this way, the heart will be cleansed. Vidinoti Sirit Sitam. This is a cleansing process through this hearing. And by this cleansing, then the knot in the heart is described will be pierced. Vidyate vidyagrantis chintante savasanshya chiyante tasya kamani. So that by this process that the knot in the heart is pierced, and then when the knot is pierced, or you could conceive that the knot is dissolved, or the knot is, by this hearing process, the knot becomes disentangled, and then it said we can see the self as master. So, seeing the self as master in a more applicable sense is seeing the teachings of Srila Prabhupada as our master. This is like described in the Bhagavad Gita as Jnana Chakshu or Shastra Chakshu. It means seeing through the eyes of the words of the liberated souls, seeing through their vision. And also seeing through their pastimes. So in this section of the Bhagavatam, we're seeing through the life of Javat. We're seeing through the pastimes that Krishna has with his pure devotee Javat. And by reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, we also see through the pastimes that Krishna has with Srila Prabhupada, and also the pastimes that Srila Prabhupada has with his disciples. So this is Shastra Chakshu or Jnana Chakshu, seeing through the eyes of scripture. Srila Prabhupada, in his famous commentary on the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which he first recorded in 1967 on the Happenings album, it says that this chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, it's the best means for self-realization. So self-realization is a process of becoming liberated from the invincible knot in the heart. And the goal of what we have to look forward to by practicing this process of Vidinoti Siritsatam Vidyate Vidyagrantish, cutting the knot in the heart, and allowing Krishna through the form of his words, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, allowing Krishna to reveal our peaceful condition in which we don't wish harm to any other living entity, and in which we remain unagitated at all times, even if threatened by decapitation or whatever else we're threatened by, that we remain unagitated. So Srila Prabhupada gave us like a wonderful process of engagement in thinking about how to please Lord Chaitanya by spreading his Sankirtan movement. So in previous times, to remain unagitated would often require many years of meditation, sitting in a secluded place and focusing the mind on the sound of the mantra. And now we also attempt to practice that every morning in our japa, But we also have an opportunity to focus our minds throughout the day by always thinking of ways to please Krishna, and especially to please Lord Chaitanya, and to please the acharyas who've come in the line of Lord Chaitanya, and fulfill Lord Chaitanya's desire that wherever we go, we tell people about Krishna. Wherever we go, we help people understand this process by which they can become free from fear, free from agitation, free from envy of other living entities, free from misidentification with the material body. So I'll stop there. Are there any questions or comments from anyone?
I was thinking about this word invincible, not as I understand it, it kind of refers to, that we can't just cut it just by our own effort. It requires Krishna's mercy to cut through it. Of course, we're trying our best, but to bridge the gap, Krishna cuts the knot ultimately. We're trying our best to hear and chant, humble ourselves, perform devotional service, align our vision with the transcendence, with the teachings of Prabhupada. But it still remains invincible, like in this Devi Hesha Gunamayi Gunamaya Turatiyama Evate Purpanite Mayamitam Tarantite, that this material energy is impossible to overcome. So as far as I understand, that means it's invincible. It refers to this material energy and attachment.
Yes. Well, yes, Srila Prabhupada sometimes uses words to emphasize the impossibility, so that we actually realize that we need help. But it's not impossible because it's part of our. It's part of our understanding that our tattva, jiva tattva, by nature the jiva is an eternal servant of Krishna. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema that the actual eternal constitutional nature of the jiva is to be self-realized, free from the influence of the material energy, and connected through service with the Supreme Absolute Personality. So, in that sense, you would say, well, why does Srila Prabhupada use a word like invincible? That's like a contradiction of our understanding of our tattva. And again, like in the Bhagavad Gita, that verse you quoted, it's impossible to overcome. But if you look at the word, so duriyatya means very difficult to overcome. And here in the verse also, the Sanskrit is sudrida hridaya grantinam. Sudrida, very strong and tight. So Srila Prabhupada is, a great Vaishnava poet. He's a great Vaishnava poet. So often words that Srila Prabhupada uses are for emphasis of the nature of the crisis that we're in. It's to emphasize the crisis and to make us really serious about appreciating how entangled we are with that knot in the heart. So it's important for that reason to study Srila Prabhupada's books systematically, and also to study the books which we are getting now written by disciples of Srila Prabhupada, which are like systematic presentations of Srila Prabhupada's books. But it's very interesting that Sanatana Goswami, when he was in Varanasi, and Lord Chaitanya instructed him every day for 2 months, and it was very systematic. the way Lord Chaitanya instructed Sanatana Goswami, very, very systematic. So, you know, because Srila Prabhupada wanted to present the whole knowledge of the whole Guru Parampara in his books to the best of his ability, then he wanted to do it in a poetic way as well, and in a way that, you know, that's a really nice sentence. O Vishwantata, those who already know that the soul is separate from the body, who are liberated from the invincible knot in the heart, who are always, so it's like very poetic, because some people are attracted by the poetry, some people are attracted by the philosophy, and some people are attracted by the artwork, and some people are just are attracted by reading about the life of the personality. So Srila Prabhupada, this was his ecstasy. You know, he wanted to like give everything in these purports and these translations, and we can also dive very deep into them and extract the nectar on many different levels. But we should know the tattva so that we can really understand what Srila Prabhupada means. So yeah, it's the energy is invincible if we identify with it. It actually is invincible. It is completely invincible. The material energy is completely invincible if we identify with it. And I know actually, I think it was yourself who sent out that quotation of like 20 statements by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. You posted that, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And one of those statements was something like, we should never think that we can understand the spiritual energy by limited material intelligence. It's ludicrous to think that we can. So here, as you could say that this, using words like invincible, impossible, unsurpassable, it's actually a warning to us that that it is actually invincible unless we practice the process. Unless we practice the process, it's not possible to understand how Krishna has his hand in assisting us. It's not possible for us to understand that unless we take full shelter of the process. So, yeah, that's my understanding of those statements. Raghunath?
It's just interesting, it shows another aspect of invincible, especially for us in Kali Yuga, because people used to be more self-controlled, but we are so kind of addicted, in this age, and become attached so easily and so obsessively, practically. So it's kind of that language, that Prabhupada translates as well. It shows to humble us and shows our real position, our helplessness more in Kali Yuga, and the need for the mercy. Like when it says very difficult 5,000 years ago, for 5,000 years later in Kali Yuga, it is invincible actually. And you can see in the documentary that we watched yesterday that the very creators of the people who created certain aspects of social media, they get caught on it themselves. They know how it works. The mother is every day telling to children how it works, and they get themselves caught on it, including their kids, and the very things that they created themselves. And so they get so captured by the very things that they created, like a Frankenstein type of thing, created a monster, and that monster itself is devouring the person who created it. So it shows how powerful is material energy, and they're trying to be a controller and trying to be an enjoyer, and getting caught by that very desire that is devouring and the people who created it. So this is the invincibility aspect, I think, of material energy.
Yeah.
And that I think Prabhupada mercifully translates more for us, because if he doesn't say it's invincible, we think, okay, I can actually do it. So it kind of brings us to the point of humility as well.
Yeah. Because if we just heard it was very difficult, then it would make us proud, think, oh, very difficult, yeah, I'm sure I can manage that. I can manage very difficult. Actually, it's interesting. I used to do rock climbing. John's a great rock climber. John, you're an old rock climber, aren't you, John? And so one of the grades in rock climbing is VD. Do you remember what VD is?
Very difficult.
Yeah, very difficult. It's actually very difficult. But what happened was, very difficult used to be like very difficult. But as more and more people got into rock climbing, and they spent their whole lives trying to perfect it, and very difficult became the easiest. They had to create more and more levels, so there was very difficult, severe, and then extreme. And then after that there was extreme 1, extreme 2, extreme 3, extreme 4, extreme 5. So it's like, what was just like a sort of hobby became like a business, and they became heroes, extreme heroes who were that's what it became. And I was thinking actually in relationship to Rupa Goswami chastising Jiva Goswami. There's that pastime when Rupa Goswami's in ecstasy and he's laughing, and then some Vaishnava who's got some disability, then Rupa Goswami's ecstasy breaks, and he's wondering, why is my ecstasy broken? And he sees that he may have offended that Vaishnava. So even though he didn't know he was doing it, he wasn't thinking any badly towards that Vaishnava, but he was so humble that he actually felt that he'd committed an offence, and so he was very tuned in to how achievement of things which in the beginning have a good motivation, how that mood of achievement contaminates the whole activity. And like that film we were watching, The Social Dilemma, all of those people who started their careers in those companies, they saw all of the wonderful things that could be achieved through social media. Many of them were doing it for a good reason. But then they saw that by engaging in the material energy of material, in a situation where pride and achievement are important, and gratification is the cycle of achievement and gratification and recognition and notification, that whole cycle, that's like the knot in the heart. That's the heart becomes knotted by these kind of, oh, that person likes me, or recognition, pride, and then when that's disturbed, it creates criticism. So Rupa Goswami saw that, and therefore when Jiva Goswami, with all good intention, protected the honor of Rupa Goswami by sort of defeating in debate somebody who'd falsely accused Rupa Goswami of something. When Jiva Goswami did that, then Rupa Goswami saw, oh, there's a little chance that my disciple could become very proud here. And therefore he banished him, he chastised him very heavily. So, so we're very fortunate to be in that line of teachers who are protecting us from, we've embarked on the process of becoming disentangled from that invincible knot in the heart, and through the reading of Srila Prabhupada's books in the Association of Devotees, then we can protect ourselves and each other from once again falling prey to the knowledge that we've, so that we don't allow our pride in our heart to latch onto our knowledge. And you can see that Mahatma Prabhu, that's exactly what he's doing in his courses, in his forgiveness courses, self-esteem courses, and also our great friend, the Shri Krishna Prabhu, he's like, this is what they're presenting, that, how to remain free from those tendencies which are very deeply rooted in our heart. And Srila Prabhupada, he gave the answer in that passage we were reading from Lilamrita this morning, that the answer is never to be lazy, and always to work hard to please the devotees. Whatever your service is, always really, really work hard at doing your service in a way that is pleasing your spiritual master, that's pleasing Krishna. But also, and that also means pleasing Lord Chaitanya, pleasing Rupa Goswami, pleasing our parampara, which means preaching. Also, it means helping others. So yeah, it's easy for me here to sit here and say these things, but it's not easy to follow it's not an easy process. It's not an easy process. Yeah, so I definitely need the help of the Vaishnavas to protect me from that kind of pride. And I can actually perceive that pride gets in the way of my serving the devotees. You see that actually happens. And so I'll stop. So, any questions online? Grantra Sri Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Gaura Premananda.
His Grace Javat Vasi Prabhu